Over the years, you guys have asked a lot of questions about the Isle of Man, and I try to answer them all, but some of the most popular, most frequently asked questions are about property. And I'm not an expert in that, but luckily I work for one, because part of my day job is to work for a law firm and a corporate service provider based here in the Isle of Man. That's our shiny new office, MannBenham and Manavia in Victoria Street here in Douglas. So I'm just going to grab the boss, sit him down, and ask him some of the questions that you asked me. Hi guys, here we are in my day job with my boss, Miles Benham, one of the best known and best lawyers in the Isle of Man for everything. And the Benham in MannBenham, the very well-known, very established law firm and corporate service provider Manavia. Links to all of this in the description. I'm not getting paid. I am getting paid for this, but not in the way that you think I'm getting paid for this. No, what we really want to do is, I get so many questions now on property over here, you know, how to buy, what's the process, what's the difference to the UK, all these things. I thought it's just makes sense to get an expert on the table to answer all of your questions in one quick video, and that's exactly what we're going to do. I made a list of, you know, all the questions you guys sent me over the months, years. And let's start with a very basic one. Are there any restrictions on buying property in the Isle of Man, either for UK people or anyone in any way, for example, like they are in Jersey?
No. On the Isle of Man, we don't have any particular restrictions which should stop anyone from buying. So if you're a UK resident, you can freely travel to the Isle of Man and you can buy property. If you're an overseas party, you're quite entitled to buy property in the Isle of Man, and it's quite common. There's no restrictions. In places such as Jersey and Guernsey, they do have restrictions which are in the form of certain houses are only for locals. We don't have that. And they also have special prices for locals and non-locals. We don't have that. On the Isle of Man, the prices are the same price you'll get if you're local or if you're non-local. There's no separate tiers of prices or any differentiation between overseas people and locals.
And those prices, I think at the moment, we can have a look next door. So where we are in Victoria Street, super nice, shiny new office. It's also where most of the estate agents are next door. And I think the average price for a house is something like $350-ish.
Yeah,
an apartment,
it depends what you're after. Yeah, obviously, the larger the house, the more expensive, and also the location.
And it's a very stable market, right? It's been stable for
it's
many years.
It's a very stable jurisdiction.
So the next question then would be, what's the differences in the process to the UK? Let's take the UK. I know a lot of you guys are moving here from the UK. And by the way, this I think is the first video on my channel where I'm actually not wearing my cap. So I'm breaking character here. But it's all good. But what is the difference between, or the main differences between the UK process over there, buying property, owning property, and here that might come as a surprise, especially for people from the UK?
I suppose the big surprise is the fact that we hardly have any taxes on purchasing property. The process of purchasing is virtually the same. You'd engage a lawyer, they would carry out searches on the property, they'll go to the deeds registry and check the title of the property to make sure it's correct, work out the boundaries of the property, make sure the person owning it is able to sell it to you. So it's pretty much the same there. We have, similar to the UK, we have a system of registered land and unregistered land, and we have a land registry. So anyone can go up to the land registry, which is public. So if you're visiting the Isle of Man, you're quite welcome to go in. You can type details of properties in and they come up on the computer, or you can pull out very old leather-bound books with all the names in, and it goes into like a big vault full of old deeds where they can pull them out. So pretty similar to the UK. Get a lawyer involved, they'll do the checks, and they will advise you when the property is ready to exchange contracts. You pay a deposit on exchange of contracts, usually around 10% of the purchase price, and then you set a date for completion when you pay the balance of the purchase price.
And that's pretty much what our conveyancing department is.
That's what they do, right? all day long.
Okay, so details of, you know, MannBenham's office details, and Manavia, we're a corporate service provider. So if you want to bring your company to the Isle of Man, as many people now do.
Well, you may actually have the property owned by a company.
Good point.
So not everybody owns the properties directly. Some people may have family trusts or a structure, or they may be doing it for investment purposes. So quite often, if someone thinks, oh, I'm going to buy a property, I've already got properties, I'll have it in a company, so I'm going to rent it out. So that's quite common. So we'd form a company. The owner of the property would then be the company.
But that's more a corporate thing, or do we see individuals do that as well?
You see,
does it make sense?
Well,
for an individual?
it does. So it limits your risk. So if you were, say you decided to become a landlord after you hit your 1 million YouTube followers.
I wish.
Yep. Then you could basically form a company, and that would be your property holding company. So then you put your properties in there. And the idea there is, one, it separates it from yourself, and it gives you a steady rental income coming into that company.
And of course, the Isle of Man, no corporation tax, no capital gains tax.
No, but on property, you do get taxed the local tax rate of 20% on the rent. So if you have a property and rent it out, then you pay the income tax rate, standard income tax rate, which is 20%.
And then I think the next logical question would be, so what's the process, how long and how much? And I do remember roughly, I mean, every house is of course different. I do remember there are also some fees that differ between locals and foreign, or do I get something wrong here?
No, there's difference in fee. There's difference in fees. So you've got, well, we start off the process. So you have search fees, and they are the fees to pay the water board, the rates department, various government department, planning department, a fee for telling you whether there's anything you need to know about the property. So it could be that there's electric cables near to the property, or is the property connected to water and services. So you pay a fee. It's roughly around £500 for the full set of searches, just roughly. Then there's some fees at the deeds registry, not expensive, to pull the deeds out and get copies of the deeds. You're looking in the tens, 50, of pounds there. But when you've purchased the property, there is a filing fee. So in the UK, stamp duty is quite high. You've seen the case of Angela Rayner, where she was something like almost £50,000, £40,000 she forgot to pay. So ours isn't as high as that. We do have a filing fee. Now, if the Isle of Man property isn't your only property, then they charge you a slightly higher fee.
That's the one I was thinking of, yeah.
So most people, if you're buying a property in the Isle of Man, you've probably got a property overseas somewhere. So you'll just be into the category. It's a slight percentage higher, but you can get those rates. You can probably put them on the site and show the rates. So it's nothing terribly high. Once you've completed, the property gets the property documents get filed at the deeds registry.
On average, what do you reckon from shaking hands to getting keys?
A couple of months, 2 to 3 months.
Okay. How does it work if you have an onward chain, or obviously you have to sell your house in the UK first and then start a fresh process here?
Chains can take longer. So if you're fortunate enough that you're in a position just to buy straight away, then it's quite quick. If you have to sell your property first, then you clearly need to wait till that completes and it goes through.
But these are two separate processes, right? Because we are two separate jurisdictions. So you couldn't use the same solicitor in the UK to do both.
No, we may work with. But we do get it. So I've had the case over the years where someone's moving to the Isle of Man. So they've got a house in England, they're selling that, and what would happen there is their lawyer would send us, or to the client, the sale proceeds. So it may go to the client will send them to us, and the sale proceeds would arrive with us, which they're then using to purchase their Isle of Man property.
So we're happy to work with UK solicitors.
Happy to work with them all, because what it does, it also helps us know that the money's okay, because it's come from another lawyer.
You have KYC already.
It's been
done,
checked
yeah,
already, so that works well.
On the money subject, I think this could be a biggie actually. You do need an Isle of Man mortgage, right? You can't, because a lot of people say like, oh, can I just use my UK mortgage? Can I go to my UK bank to buy an Isle of Man property? But generally, it should be here.
I've never seen anybody use a UK mortgage. And I think one of the reasons is, if you get a mortgage, the bank wants security. So it's a charge over your property. In the Isle of Man, we have a different form of charge. It's called the Deed of Conditional Bond and Security. Slightly different, because it's a different country, different way of doing it. So it's a slightly different document to what the banks see in the UK. These documents are specifically drafted for Isle of Man banks. So it'd have the bank's name in it. So you would normally go to a local bank. The only time I could see it being completely different would be on maybe a large commercial transaction, whereby the bank may be getting its security in other ways, charges over shares or something else. But for general domestic buying your own house, go to the local banks. There's loads of banks, loads of choice. And there's people who specialize in acting as a broker. They can assist you in finding the best deal for you on your mortgage.
And if you're just moving from the UK to here, it's the same credit system, right? So there shouldn't be any issues.
No, it's all the same.
It might be different if you're from abroad, obviously, and you don't have a credit record here. But
yeah,
how do we ever deal with any international buyers? Any international as in further afield in the UK? Are there any things people might have to be aware of, say, at the other end of the world in the Philippines, and you want to buy here? Anything special to be aware of?
Yeah, make sure you can get a visa to come here. So you can buy, you can happily spend your money and buy a property, but just make sure you can actually get to the Isle of Man and have a right to live here. So you're looking at the topic of immigration and visas, etc.
And another question was, can off-islanders buy prior to moving to the Isle of Man?
Yes.
There's a lot of misinformation. You need to have an Isle of Man address prior to purchasing, or you need an Isle of Man bank account. No. It's just anyone can buy.
So let's use the Philippines example. So if I'm sat in the Philippines and say I was a cash buyer, I could contact an estate agent, find a property, instruct my lawyer, and I could purchase it. What the lawyer will be looking at is the source of funds. So one of the things they have to do under the anti-money laundering legislation is identify you. So they'll want a copy of your passport, proof of where you live. But then the key part here is, since properties are expensive, the lawyers is going to have to understand, where's that money come from? So if it's from your wages, produce some wage slips. If it's a business and you've got accounts, produce your accounts and evidence it. But the lawyer is going to want to go in and understand, how did you make that money? And you'll have to produce documents to show and evidence it.
One other question I've never heard before is, why is there no equity release on the IOM? I'm not even sure what that is.
So you'll see it advertised in the UK. So you'll have adverts where someone's quite old and they want to get money out of the property.
Okay.
There's firms that will take a charge over the property and give them money.
Okay.
And then on their death, they will sell the property and repay the loan from it. But that can be quite expensive. Mm-hmm. So effectively, you're in a way you're borrowing from your property, and in the future you will repay it. But you could find your next generation have a greatly reduced amount of money. However, if that's the asset you have and you need that to live on, then why not? The alternative is you could simply sell the property and rent somewhere.
But there's nothing legal you're saying we can't do it.
I'm not sure. There's no reason you can't do it. I've not seen any firms.
Maybe it's the market is just
I think
too small.
It's too small a market. I've not seen anybody advertising that.
I think one thing that's also worth mentioning is, once you do move here, not so much when you rent, because usually your landlord pays it, sometimes not. But when you buy, we don't have council tax, right? We have our lovely rates, but we have two sets of rates. One of which I used to set in Douglas, I was part of the budget committee. So we have rates.
Right, we have two types. Now, this is where it gets real Isle of Manish, if we call it that.
Overgoverned, you mean?
Right, so what we have is, we've got the Treasury, which is the government. So they set a form of rates. None of these are expensive, by the way. You're looking in hundreds of pounds, depending on the size of your house. So you've got rates payable to the Treasury, and they're for particular services such as water and things like that. Then on the Isle of Man, the local areas are called parishes. So we have lots of parishes. So if you were to look at the Isle of Man and it's like a cake and chop it into slices, then each of these is a parish. So the parishes themselves set rates, but they all differ. So Douglas has quite a high rate of rates because it has so many services. So it has a swimming pool, a sports track, it's got horse trams.
Nice parks, glens. Actually, we got rid of the horse tram. Douglas doesn't pay for it.
It's got a big beach, And all of this needs to be paid for. So the Douglas rates per pound are higher than the rates in a tiny little village in the middle of nowhere where there's no services, no facilities. So it just depends where you want to live. So you could move to the Isle of Man and live in the most beautiful spot. There's a place called Macclesfield. If you ever get a chance, look on Google Maps. It's just outside Ramsey. You can step out your car and there's no sound. You think your ears are broken, and then you'll hear a little sheep in the background. It's so quiet. You can walk down a little country lane to the beach, and on the beach there's seals. Seals just in front of you, swimming around. You can walk around the cliffs and go past the lighthouse. That's cheap rates. There's no services, but it's probably one of the most beautiful parts of the world.
And generally, like you said, every property is different. So you're going to get 2 rates bills. Okay, you're not going to get council tax, but you get 2 rates bills. One is going to be from your local borough. Like in the case of Douglas, I was a Douglas councillor, so you get a Douglas rates bill. As an example, mine for a bungalow in Douglas is around about 700, I think now, a year. That's per year. And then you get a central bill. So the local bill is for your bins, for your parks, for your streetlights, I think, are paid from that kind of thing. And then the central one is water and sewage, right? Pretty much.
Cool.
And other bits. So we are over-governed. We have a central and a local government. But you get 2. And I think mine's also about 700. So call it 1,400 total for the year. And that's it. That's all you pay. Any other bits about Isle of Man properties that might be interesting for people looking to buy here, or?
You can look online. So I think first of all, go online, look at the estate agents, try and work out what kind of property you want. Do you want to be in the town? Do you want to be able to walk to the shops? The Isle of Man's like a mini country. So we've got the beaches, and then we've also got a mountain in the middle, and there's forests. So if you're already living in a city and you want the opposite, you could come to the Isle of Man and live in an area with trees, complete, outstanding, beautiful countryside. Or if you want it where you can go to the shops and it's more vibrant and there's bars and things, then you can move to one of the towns. So the choice is yours, but do your research. There's a funny thing that happens to people in the Isle of Man is that if you're in the UK, you're used to driving down the motorway, you're used to doing hundreds and hundreds of miles in your car, and you don't think of it. You move to the Isle of Man, and what you'll do is you'll buy your house on the opposite side to where you maybe work, and it will be maybe 30 minutes, 40 minutes driving, and that's nothing at all at first. 6 months later, you're planning on getting your sandwiches and your passport ready to come to Douglas, because that 30-minute drive has suddenly become the equivalent of 6 hours, because everything shrinks down. So maybe look towards the town centre, or if you don't mind driving 30 minutes, get yourself a place in one of the beautiful spots of the
Really,
of the
nothing here is more than 30 minutes away, if I'm being honest. It's a tiny island.
And if you get lost, just keep driving, because you go back round again.
There's no lack of properties for sale, unlike the rental market, which unfortunately is still it's non-existent. I mean, it's ridiculous.
There's a lot of demand.
Yeah. There's a lot of, and very, very little supply, which is a huge problem. The property market, if you're in the market to buy, no problems. Anything from your up to down to apartments. The cheapest apartments I think I've seen are 150, 180. Seem to be 200-ish now for apartments. Up to down is what, 300 now?
Yeah, if you're buying an apartment, just do it with your eyes open. Get a surveyor. So you should have a surveyor on older property or even newer property if you want to be very cautious. Now, our promenade here in the city of Douglas is made up of old hotels which are built by the Victorians. So some of these have been converted into apartments, some of them have been dropped, and they're brand new apartments, purpose built. If you're looking at a conversion from an old Victorian hotel, then you may have problems getting a mortgage.
Seriously?
Yeah, because some of them are very, very old, may not have lifts, and there can be all sorts of issues. So you need a surveyor there and the correct advice from a broker just to make sure that it's something a bank will lend on. If it's a modern apartment, and yeah, the banks will happily lend, but some of the old conversions. So you may see properties for 100,000, but it could be because it's a very old converted flat, which may not be up to the current fire regulations.
Chance to buy it as cash, essentially.
You buy it for cash, but when you come to sell it, you may find you struggle to sell it unless you find another cash buyer.
That's a good point. They're still building new houses.
There's loads of lovely new property. It's just that there is old property. There's property for everyone, basically. Whatever you want.
There's also, this is sort of a weird place because the island is very rich, and there's a lot of millionaires and billionaires living here, but it's not like Monaco. You don't see the big mansions. They're there, but they're hidden. You go at St. Mark's or somewhere in the countryside, and if you know where these people live, you know there's a mansion behind this hedge, but you wouldn't know, and it's very discreet here, which is, I think, a lot of people appreciate actually.
It's also a different culture. If you went down to the Channel Islands or south of England, then wealth is ostentatiously shown. So you'll want people to know you're rich. You'll want to show off your wealth. On the Isle of Man, it's the opposite. You could be in a bar, a restaurant, and you could be sat next to a billionaire, and you would never know he's a billionaire. He may have a private jet at the airport. It's never going to be mentioned, and no one cares. So it's a very equal society on the Isle of Man. Everybody's treated equally, and money doesn't really come into it. The guy may have his Ferrari parked outside, but people aren't stood outside taking photographs of it. It's very unusual in that respect.
Yeah, we don't really have that car show culture as well. Come to think of it, like if you're in London or Monaco, you have all these YouTube kids running around taking pictures of your cars. It just doesn't. People here have very nice cars. Don't get me wrong, because we don't have speed limits and all that, right? But you don't have this culture. It's very discreet. It's very hardly ever do you see someone drive the Ferrari to work or to the supermarket. Like we have the mountain road. You take it out Sunday morning and go for a blast. That tends to be what people do. There's some insane collections here. So, but other than that, so you can buy here. It's not a problem. If you need any help, all the contact details are in the description for either if you just want to buy, a property, or if you want to bring your company here. Manavia is the corporate service provider, which is what I work for primarily. If you have a gaming company you want to bring in, that's my day job. Any legal or corporate questions, details are in the description. Any further questions you have, drop them in the comments, and I'll ask the boss when I see him next. And we'll keep you updated. So thank you so much for making time.
Thank you. We're here to help.
Cool. See you later.